Do you seek the freedom to pursue greater meaning and purpose in your life? Is there something that you're passionate about that you'd like to support by giving time, talent, or money? Do you seek a level of financial freedom to live an ideal life as you uniquely define it? Welcome to the Money and Meaning Show with Jeff Bernier, a show dedicated to helping you gain the confidence and freedom to lead a life of personal significance and help you get your actions and resources in alignment with what matters most.
Well, hello and welcome to the Money and Meaning Show. My name is Jeff Bernier. I am your guide and host as we have a monthly conversation around money and meaning. So this show is all about helping you create the clarity and confidence to live a great life. And we try to offer some encouragement to help you go deeper with what matters most. And that's the meaning part. How do you create meaning and purpose in your life? And the money part is all about how do we create the margin? How do we create the wealth management strategies to create the freedom, the financial freedom to go pursue your vision of a meaningful life? And I get to do a lot of different things in this show because it's just an opportunity for me to share some information. And one of the things that I like to do is bring on some really helpful guests. And some of these shows are, about meaning and purpose and pursuing your passion. Some of these shows are technical wealth management around investment strategy and tax planning and estate planning and all the things that we do in a wealth management context to help you create this clarity and the freedom, the financial freedom to go do what you'd like to do. But something else I like to do periodically is do what I call money and meaning stories. So these are opportunities to bring in some really interesting people that have some really cool stories to tell. And that's what we're doing today. We're going to have a guest on today that has got, I think, a really helpful story to tell. I have a consultant that I used to work with, and he used to always say, retirement is what we do to airplanes and ships and equipment when it's no longer useful. So we don't really want to use the word retirement in our vocabulary because we don't ever want to be non-productive and non-useful and be stuck out to pasture like an airplane or a ship. And I think that's a pretty good theme for today with our guest because he remains productive in his later stages of life. And I think it can offer some really encouragement for all of us as we figure out what's next in our second act. So let me introduce my guest, Bruce Johnsen. Bruce is a fascinating and interesting individual. He spent the early part of his career in the Navy, and a lot of that at sea. He was a line officer on ships. He traveled the world. He was in the Vietnam War. In midlife, he made a career change and he became a mediator and actually ended up specializing in family businesses and partnerships. He's a lifelong learner. In addition to an engineering degree, he earned a master's degree in management, a master's degree in counseling, and then he got additional training and certifications in mediation. And he does management consulting. He helps individuals, family businesses, and partnerships to become their very best. And so I am delighted to have you here today, Bruce. Welcome and happy to have you on the show.
Thank you, Jeff. It's good to be here.
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us. I had heard about Bruce for a couple of years from a very close friend of mine, and I just had to talk to him. So we hooked up a couple of months ago and said, what would it be like if you came in and just shared a little bit about your journey? But Bruce, to start these shows, I really like our audience to just know you a little bit. So do you mind just sharing a little bit about yourself and your family and where you live and just sort of background?
Sure. Martha and I live in Monterey, California. We've lived many places and no place is perfect, but this is close. So we're happy to be here. We're a strangely childless couple. I was a Boy Scout leader. Martha was a teacher. And so we have 7 godchildren and a lot of young friends. We feel blessed for that. And so my family of origin was in Rapid City, South Dakota, in the Black Hills. And a seminal event in my youth was when I was 15 and my dad told me, "You're going to work on the construction crew tomorrow morning." So I got some old clothes and went out to the crew with him. And he went up to the foreman and said, "Here's my son, make a man out of him." And they did. They had a good time making a man out of me.
Yeah, very, very cool. At what age was that?
15.
15 years old.
Summer of my 15th year.
Oh,
Yes.
that's awesome. Well, that kind of leads right into where I wanted to go with our conversation, because you do have a sort of a fascinating, I don't even know if I want to call it a career path, but a journey. You have a fascinating journey. You've been involved in a lot of different types of things and have had multiple acts. I use sort of the theater metaphor in the book that I wrote, The Money and Meaning Journey. And you're on, I don't know if it's act 6 or 7, but you're on a bunch of acts. So tell me a little bit about your career path. So you started in construction when you were 15 years old. Kind of walk us through your career path in sort of a high level, if you don't mind, because I think it's pretty fascinating.
Sure. One more thing about my dad, very bright man, and never had the opportunity to go to college. So he said to me, "I want you to learn this trade. I want you to learn it well, so you'll never have to do it again." So get your college education, do something else.
Yeah, nothing like hard manual labor will drive you to be interested in knowledge work. I mean, I had a similar experience. I worked in commercial construction when I was in high school, and as a high school football player, there was not a better workout.
Yeah,
Working in construction, I was pretty prepared for the fall. But not only that, I was prepared to go to college, so I wouldn't have to lug concrete wheelbarrows around for the rest of my life.
it's the truth. There was a lot of fun at the beginning of the summer, no fun at the end of the summer.
Yeah, you knew what you didn't want to do. Yeah. So what happened? So what happened after that? You obviously left the construction world after, I guess, high school. Where did you go then?
Oh, then I went to college and got a degree in civil engineering, specializing in structures.
Okay.
And so I had a job offer from Boeing in Seattle. And I thought, well, that's a nice place, I think. And so I worked there for about a year, one rainy winter. In Seattle, they say you will develop web feet if you stay for 2 or 3 rainy winters. But
yeah,
I left and went to Lockheed Martin in Florida. And but I wasn't very happy. The kind of work that I did seemed very inconsequential. And I just wasn't happy. And at that time, there was a draft. So by a process of elimination, I ended up volunteering to join the Navy, became a Navy line officer. And so I served in 5 different ships at sea and learned a lot about dealing with human beings, with leadership and coaching, being a good example, just trying to get the best out of everybody else and me at the top of the list. And so I learned a lot there. And after 20 years in the Navy, last 5 years with the staff at the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey.
Okay.
So I retired from the Navy and I told my wife, I'm going to take a few months off and let the dust settle and figure out what it is I'm supposed to be doing down here on planet Earth. And she rolled her eyes because she knew she'd be going back to teach in the fall. And what am I going to be doing?
Right.
So I had a very nice summer. And my neighbor, who was a treasurer of a mutual fund, and I used to ride bikes. When the markets closed, we'd ride. One day he said, I know what you should do. And I said, what's that? He said, we need people to resolve disputes in business. We could take them to our attorneys and have a bloodbath, or we don't, and they never end. And you could do it. And I thought, yeah, I could do that. And So I got trained and certified as a mediator, but I hadn't mastered one part of the equation, and that was you need to be able to do marketing and sales
Yeah.
to get business.
Right.
Uh, in the Navy, you never tell anybody how good you are or what you can do. They tell you
I got
how
you.
good you are now, what
Yeah.
you can do and what you can't do.
Yeah.
So I thought, So I started taking people to lunch. I knew how to do that.
Yeah.
So my client base turned out to be family-owned businesses
Right.
with partnerships.
Okay.
And so that for me was a nice mixture because there's some structure in it.
Right.
And at the same time, there's a lot of messiness inside the structure.
Yeah. And I guess you could use, I mean, the military at some level is like graduate school because you're learning human development and leadership and training and systems and processes and different personalities. So I guess you probably used a lot of the skills that you learned in the Navy that might have carried over to working with family businesses that can oftentimes be in conflict, I'm sure.
You can be assured of that.
Yeah.
So I then thought after I did mediation work with family businesses and partnerships that this is really hard work for everybody, myself included.
Yeah.
What can we do upstream to try to make things better so we don't get down to this nasty place and have to figure things out? So I got a master's degree in counseling then.
Okay.
And I thought that would help me to understand better what's going on inside of people's minds and started doing succession planning.
Yeah.
So in a family business and in a partnership, people generally don't like to talk about succession until it's too late.
Right.
Ideally, if you want to do a succession plan for anything with any complications, it takes 5 years to get the right people in the job.
Yeah.
So I did that. And with partnerships, I would do pre-partnership work, all the things that partners should know before they become partners.
Right.
And then kind of midterm work, allergy season in California.
Yeah.
Midterm work where they have something like this 7-year itch. They're not happy anymore.
Right.
They're making money. They've got a good business.
Yeah.
But you're not happy because I'm the guy that's doing the marketing and I'm on the golf course.
Yeah.
And you're doing all the work.
Right.
So we've got to get that straightened out.
Yeah.
So I come in and try to help them to reorient.
Yeah.
And then at the end, I'll have sometimes law firms where we sit down to figure out what's a good solution, then turn it over to one attorney to resolve it.
Okay. Yeah. Now, is that the kind of work you do now? Or are you doing?
That's what I do now.
Okay. So that's what you've been doing for the last 20 years or so, maybe longer.
More than that. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So I try. My 3 months in retirement, Jeff, were a real eye opener.
How so? Yeah. Well, how old were you then? I mean, you were just maybe in your 40s?
Very old, 45.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all the things I thought I'd do if I had more time, excuse me, I didn't do because I had more time. And it was starting to take me all morning to read the Wall Street Journal, the Monterey Herald, and the Mail. And I thought, this is not a good track you're on.
Yeah, well, that kind of gets me to my next question, which is, as you went from obviously, a day laborer as a kid growing up, and then, getting educated, Navy, more education, management consulting. What are some of the lessons? What are some of the lessons you learned in your career or early in life that have served you well as you made these various transitions, or insights, as you just mentioned, when you had just a couple of months of nothing to do as an early retiree in your 40s from the military? What were some of the things that have impressed you in terms of life lessons?
I think it's important if one believes in a higher power, God,
Yeah.
to ask what I'm supposed to be doing here
Yeah.
and get some inkling, because there are many things we could do. What could we do best to help other people? On my website, my tagline is becoming our best.
Okay.
So I want other people and me to become our best through our work together. And so some of the life lessons are: be transparent. Tell people what you're doing and why you're doing it. If this conversation that I'm in that's difficult takes 5 more minutes to get figured out, take the 5 minutes. Save a half an hour of later trying to unscrew the mess that we've made here.
Yeah.
And be patient with others. Be patient with yourself. A lot of what we do in life is with other people who don't grow as fast as we, or change as fast as we want them to. Well, one of my mentors along the way said, this is like being a gardener. You're not a mechanic. You can't just take a torque wrench and try to straighten things out here. You have to plant the seed and water the seed and do all the things that a gardener does.
Fertilize it. Yeah. Nurture it, and it'll grow on its own time.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So faith in something bigger than yourself, divine intervention, God, wherever you get inspiration. I mean, I think you and I share a similar faith background. So we believe in a God that loves us and has a plan for us. And we just kind of got to listen and try to get some discernment on what that is. Being patient with people, being transparent. It sounds like, in your counseling work, not avoiding conflict either. I mean, when there is conflict, some of us avoid it. And it sounds like, the things that you've done in your work is you've addressed them. You didn't ignore them.
I have to remind myself about that a lot, Jeff. One thing we didn't mention earlier is listening. My joke is I spent the first half of my life talking. I want to spend the second half listening, because listening, I learn things, relearn things. And then we also find out what's going on with someone. Yeah. Make eye contact, listen.
Yeah. Be present. Yeah. And for me personally, that takes a lot of intentionality, because it's easy to get distracted with our agenda and the things that we've got going on. And it requires a sacrifice. And what's interesting about it is once you make the sacrifice, it's very rewarding. Yeah. When I say sacrifice, you're sacrificing your agenda. But it can be very rewarding. And again, I'm a work in progress on this, big time. So, I noticed from your website, there's some other things that you're involved in, and it looked like you've done a lot of work internationally. And so your website, which we'll reference later, says since 1992, you've worked to prevent, manage, and resolve conflict in other countries using collaborative problem solving, facilitation, and a mediation process. So tell us, and you have a long history of things that you've done around the globe. Can you share a little bit about some of that and what the type of work that's referring to?
Yes, it's probably one of the most interesting parts of my life, because we're not just dealing with other human beings, we're dealing with other cultures and expectations. One of the first things they told us in Russia is don't sit on a table. We eat from tables in Russia. We don't sit on tables and talk like we do in the US. And in China, when we're sitting at a buffet with a circular lazy Susan, I think they're called, and with all these dishes on it, I'm sitting next to the number 2 guy from China, and he said, "Oh, look, you've got to try this." And so it comes up in front of me, and it's a piece of intestine in a clear white liquid of some kind. I thought, well, okay, I'll try it. and I did. And so it makes us be a little more flexible and also attentive, what you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
We have to learn from other people. I was only in one real life-threatening experience, excuse me, in Haiti, where we had Bill Lincoln, my mentor, was a very successful mediator, one of the top in the world. And he would go to these places, bring me along, and a few others sometimes. And we would try to do something with the Guatemalan Civil War.
Oh, wow.
Teaching people.
Now, was this through your your management consulting practice, or
no, this was like a sideline. This is
okay. So you're subcontracted by other people that said, I need you to help us do this project. And they were maybe a government agency or a nonprofit or something like that. Is that?
Usually we flew below the radar. The State Department would think, what are you doing? That's our business. You shouldn't be doing that. And Bill thought, if we get involved with the government too much, we'll just do the same things the government does.
I see.
We worked with the Guatemalan Civil War, and we worked with them for 2 years between the comandantes and the army and the government. And they came up with a resolution because Bill had taught them how to talk to each other and negotiate with each other. And so it was things like that, or in Haiti, where the 3 black colonels, wonderful guys, sitting across the table, said, "What are you doing here? Are you spies? Do you work for the CIA?" And in Haiti, if you do the wrong things, you get what's called a Haitian necklace, which is a tire with gasoline in it.
Oh, no.
Lit.
Yeah.
And so we went through this interrogation, and Bill has a heart condition, my friend, and he sits up and says, "Excuse me, I need to say something." And the colonels looked at him like, and he said, "I wouldn't want to play poker with any of you gentlemen." And there's this heavy silence.
Yeah.
Finally, one of them starts to laugh. "Ah, Mr. Lincoln, you're a joker."
Yeah. So this is work that you had a colleague that was involved in this type of work, and you assisted him.
He's the master. I was the
apprentice.
assistant.
Yeah. So you traveled around the world with him doing this type of work around the globe is interesting. Yeah, that is really fascinating. And so the work you're involved in now, I know we were gonna have a conversation a few days ago, and you said you had a full calendar. So and I think that you look to be at least 60.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I think, so do you mind telling us how young you are?
I tell people I'm a young 85.
Okay. 85. Okay. So you're just getting warmed up good here. So
I think so. And
yeah, it's just
some things I don't do as well as I did when I was 25.
Well,
most things I do a lot better than I did when I was 25.
Yeah, I think that's true with most of us. And so the work you're involved in now, how much are you serving others now? I guess that's maybe all the time, but how much are you serving now in some capacity?
I don't believe in retirement, for me at least. And I watched other people die the first year after they retire because they've lost meaning in their lives. And they didn't prepare for it. And for me, I get a lot of satisfaction about working with people and helping people. I think my life, as I go along, as I walk down the street, I should say hello to people. When I talk to the girl in the coffee shop, I should make eye contact and actually look at her and try to let her know that I care to some extent.
Yeah.
This is not just a transaction. It's more than a transaction. And so hopefully we leave a trail of people who are a little happier or a lot happier. So my clientele, I've got about 5 or 6, and it ranges from people that make parts for rocket ships to law firms where they need to do a succession plan, to a family where we've got children from one mom and children from the mistress and grandchildren and very complicated things. And then individual coaching for people, communication and leadership.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you what your definition of retirement is, but it sounds like my consultant that I mentioned earlier. I mean, retirement's not a word that you're really all that familiar with because I have a guy that I had on a while back, a guy named Mitch Anthony, that had one of the best definitions of of work that I'd ever heard. His definition for work was anything that created value for others and meaning for me. So if he created value for another human being and it created meaning for me, he defined that as work.
That's very good.
Yeah, he says, so by that definition, I'll work forever. I hope to create value for other people, and I hope to have meaning in my life till the day I die. And so, whether you're compensated or not for it is sort of a secondary concern if you're creating value for others and it's meaningful for you. And it sounds like you have a similar mindset, maybe not the same definition, but you're still going strong at 85 in terms of being productive and serving others. Well, my final couple of questions are, this show is really geared to people who are trying to figure out what's next. They might have had a successful career or raising a family, or they're late in their career and they're trying to strategize what do they do after traditional work. Any advice you might give them that they might have a similar experience in terms of figuring out, meaning and fulfillment and purpose in their, in their later stages of life? Any advice for them?
Yeah, I think, first of all, look forward to it. It's a new chapter in your life, a different chapter. You can prepare for it by thinking about what's your bucket list. Fine. Taking a few months off if you can to let the dust settle so that you have a better idea of what you want to do. Too many of us, when we're in high stress jobs, become addicted somewhat to all the furor that's going on around us all the time. And we're solving problems that are driving us crazy, by the way. But we've got that we need that somehow. So one has to recognize that and then move towards something that's realistic. Part-time work. One of my Navy friends said when he turned 60 years old, he wanted to take one vacation a month for the rest of his life. Could be 2 days, could be 2 weeks, whatever it is, but it's on the calendar every month. So this month on my calendar is to go see the desert bloom. There's a period of a few weeks when if there's a rainy season, the desert blooms with flowers everywhere. And then little flowers die within a month or so and back to desert. So that's for this month. And so each month I try to have something like that on the agenda, on the calendar.
Yeah.
Keep me from getting stale.
Right.
I read a lot and try to keep up with what's going on at the times. I'm one of the reasons I'm not retired is that I'm forced to learn how to do Zoom to some extent.
Right. You have to learn new things.
Teams. Yeah.
Well, and obviously things change fast these days. So being a lifelong learner can be helpful for all of us, regardless of whether we are creating value for others in a traditional employment setting or a nonprofit or just being a super great granddad to your grandchildren. I mean, there are many roles that we can play. I love what you said though about taking a break, it's kind of like a detox. You're detoxing from the stimulus of meetings and instant messaging and creating something, a deadline, which is all very rewarding, accomplishing your to-do list every day. But as you make the transition to what's next, I think having that period of time where you just let your brain sort of reset. It's almost like you got to turn the computer off and reboot it later, but let it rest for a little while.
Well said.
To get the cobwebs out before you start, strategizing. I talk all the time about sort of going to the woods metaphorically, and that's a great time where you can obviously pray and listen and get some insight from our Creator, and obviously mentors and friends and those kinds of things as well can be insightful. Well, this has been very helpful. Anything else you might like to share with the audience in terms of encouragement or advice, or anything else you might like to add?
Well, one of the reasons my wife thinks I'm different is because I'm the person that's always the last to make contact with somebody. They'll disappear off. They just don't, for many reasons. They're out of communication for 5 years. Don't know where they are. Well, we can still pray for them, and I can still send them a Christmas card or an email or something just to keep in contact. I think it's important to keep those friendships and acquaintances alive as best we can, for their sake and for our sake.
And again, that's the kind of thing for some of us, it requires a lot of intentionality. I know a guy who told me you should write 3 thank you notes a day. Now I don't, but it sure is aspirational. Because it's really, when you get a handwritten thank you note, or a handwritten note, it doesn't be a thank you note, just a handwritten note, was thinking about you, so grateful for our relationship, whatever. It just feeds you. It creates, it creates some energy and positive, for yourself even. You don't do it for that reason. You do it because you're showing appreciation for others. But this has been very, very cool, Bruce. Thanks for sharing all of this. So tell me, how can people find out more about you? I know you're not really marketing all over the country for clients, but if people want to learn more about you, your website has a lot of great information and thoughts, and you've taken the time, to write a few articles and blogs over the years. You've got a whole series of articles. Where can people find more about Bruce and some of your information?
Probably my website would be the first place to go. And it's Bruce at brucejohnsen.com. It's the Danish spelling, Johnsen. And in there is my alternative to writing a book. You wrote a book, Jeff. I should write a book, but it's easier for me to write 1 page of what's on my mind. So it's Becoming Our Best, and they're at 50 or 60.
Yeah.
1 page on things that are useful.
Yeah. Well, I think that type of content is really useful, because most of us don't really have the time to sit down and read books anymore like we used to, but we can read an article. We've got 15 minutes to read an article that can be impactful. So I think that's incredibly valuable. Well, this is awesome, Bruce. Our mutual friend told me that you had a great story, and you in fact do. And I think it's very encouraging to those of us who are moving in to Act 2 to say, look, there are multiple right answers. There may be more than one right answer. Yes. And to experiment, and don't be afraid to change course, and to be a lifelong learner. And you've shared some great wisdom on all of those things. So thank you so much for that. And those of you that checked in today, thank you for being with us today. I hope you found the conversation with Bruce as valuable as I did. If you'd like to check out more shows, you can check out the Money and Meaning Show on iTunes and all the normal streaming services. Please give us a review. It's helpful to build an audience. If you would check out the show and give us a review, let us know what you think. If you'd like to reach out to me, I can be reached at moneyandmeaning@tandemgrowth.com. And so until next time, find what makes your heart come alive, and put the plans in place to go pursue it. Thanks, and have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Money and Meaning Show with Jeff Bernier, a show dedicated to help you gain the confidence and freedom to lead a life of personal significance, and help you get your actions and resources in alignment with what matters most. We would love to hear from you. If you have any questions for Jeff or comments on the show, feel free to reach out to us at moneyandmeaning@tandemgrowth.com, or you can find us on the web at www.tandemgrowth.com. Jeff Bernier is the President and Chief Investment Officer at Tandem Growth Financial Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. This show is a production of Tandem Growth Financial Advisors, LLC. All information discussed is general in nature, is provided for informational purposes only, and should not be construed as specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Listeners should consult an attorney or tax professional regarding their specific legal or tax situation. Listeners should not rely on the content of this podcast as the basis for any investment decisions. A professional advisor should be consulted and/or independent due diligence should be conducted before implementing anything discussed in this show. While information presented is believed to be factual and up-to-date, Tandem Growth Financial Advisors, LLC, does not guarantee its accuracy, and it should not be regarded as a complete analysis of the subjects discussed. Tandem Growth Financial Advisors, LLC, does not make any representations or warranties as to the accuracy, timeliness, suitability, completeness, or relevance of any information prepared by any unaffiliated third party, such as guests on the podcast, and takes no responsibility for the same.